Hey guys, it's Lane here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're going to be doing our second part for the Shadow Rising review here. We're going to be covering this section here between these two pieces of paper, which is pages, let's see, 247, which starts at chapter 15, all the way to page 491. Or 490, which ends right before the start of chapter 31. So 15 chapters here that are all kind of the middle portion, or the first half of the middle portion of the book here. So really good stuff here in terms of general thoughts. A lot more exciting things here than before, but still managing to maintain its kind of slow build that I quite like, that I really enjoy from Robert Jordan. I was really invested in this. I think I read this section in like a day or so. Like I don't remember exactly how much time I spent, and mostly because I read like really late at night, so I can't remember exactly what time I started, what time I finished. But I remember reading this in kind of two segments, I think. And one segment I did deliberately 50 pages, and the other segment I was like, okay, I'll just read. And before I remembered, I was already past that section of the story. So overall, really good stuff here. So the rundown here starts with Matt deciding to go down into the Great Holding, I think is what it's called, to look for that red door frame, which, well, he's an idiot. Even though he keeps saying that he doesn't want to deal with the power, he always ends up touching it in some way. And he goes through, and he meets these things, these creatures, that I would consider to be Fae. Like, they're basically Fae, and they're divided into two different groups, and they're supposed to be some like sort of like snake people or something. I'm not really sure. I didn't really understand the image that it was being portrayed here, but they're pretty interesting, and they are basically Fae creatures. They don't like steel, they don't like music, they don't like fire. And I think Fae only really deal with steel, or with iron specifically. But kind of the same vibe, right? They're kind of like generic magic creatures that have weaknesses that you can exploit. And they're pretty interesting. And basically, he has three questions. And in typical Matt fashion, he forgets the rules and does whatever he wants and asks three questions before he plans them out. And he gets three answers. The answers are, don't go to the two rivers. Instead, go to Rui Dien. That's answer number one. He's going to marry the daughter of 9 moons. I don't really know what this means. But when someone says 9 moons, or like a large amount of moons, I usually think of like Jupiter or something like that, like a planet. So I'm guessing that he's going to have something to do with a girl that has a name that has some sort of, some planetary vibe to it, right? But I'm not really sure. And the last one is that he must die and be reborn in order to get what he wants. And this plays into stuff that happens later on in the section when they finally do get to Rudian, or Rudian. I don't know how to say it, but I'll go with Rudian since that seems to be the easiest way to pronounce it. So yeah, he comes out of the red doorway, and he's kind of upset. He's reeling from his experience when out comes Rand from the same doorway, and then they interact slightly, and then out comes Moraine, and then she gets mad at them, usual hijinks ensue. She gets mad. They don't tell her anything. She prods for more answers. They still don't tell her anything, so she decides to leave without explaining anything to them in turn. And so that's basically where that part of the story ends. Then we move on to a different section of the story, which actually involves Perrin. And basically, it's the fact that Perrin needs to go down to the two rivers. He needs to go save his people, but there is no actual way of him doing it that is safe, that is easy, that won't take weeks and weeks and weeks. And so he decides to get Loyal's help to go through the ways, because there's supposed to be the ways are all over the place, and there's supposed to be one in Manathiran, clearly, because that was an ancient, meaningful place. And there are clearly a few of them here in Tyr. And so he gets Loyal's help. He has a lover's spat with Fail, because, she's always very unclear about her feelings, and honestly, Perrin is not willing to ask her because he doesn't want to deal with this like power exchange that they have going on. It's really weird. I like it. I think it's interesting, but it's also really awkward and really like difficult to kind of deal with because it's frustrating to read, right? But I think that also kind of adds to the charm of it. But I'm not sure. I might be the only one that thinks that. I don't know. But basically, Loyal gets trapped in between this lover spat between the two of them. But eventually, they manage to find a way to all go through the ways. Perrin won't leave Fail behind, and actually, he's gonna bring some people along with him because Gaul, the Aiel, and I think this is the one that they release when he was strapped to a cross or something back in book 1, which is interesting. And he owes Perrin his life, and so he decides to help Perrin with what he needs. And because Fail is friendly with 2 other Ale women, with Bayer and Chida, I think, Kaida. I think that's what their names are. Or Shiad, I think is actually what her name is. They come along too. And so we have Perrin and Fail bickering, and then we have Gaul and the 2 maidens bickering as well, and it's pretty funny and pretty interesting, and I quite like it. So yeah, then they manage to go through the ways, and while that is happening, the girls are also preparing to go on their own journeys, and they get interrupted because Lan storms into the room, more emotional than we've ever seen him before. And he sweeps Nynaeve off her feet. He kisses her. He tries to convince her not to go, or to get help from someone along the way to protect her. She manages to force him to not do that, but also she's quite taken with what he's doing, and so it's a confusing kind of moment for them. But also it's really nice, and I really enjoyed this aspect. I thought it was a fun little moment with them. Eventually, Lan leaves, but it's not the last that they've heard of him, so. It is what it is. And so they move on to a different part of the story. And then we have Tom and Moraine talking. And this is pretty interesting. The stuff that happens here is good. We get a little bit of background here for Moraine. Apparently she is from a noble house, or actually the noble house of this place called Carian. Or Carian? I don't know how to say it. But she is a Dramidid. And apparently the last time there was a war with the Aiel, it was because of her family members' betrayal or treason to this peace pact that the 2 had, by taking down this tree. I think that's what it was, and so she's kind of from a disgraced family, but it has nothing to do with her. She says that she doesn't bear that name for nothing, or that she doesn't bear her name. All she's trying to do is save the world. Pretty interesting stuff here. I quite like their interaction. Eventually, Moraine convinces Tom to go with Nynaeve and Elaine so that they also have someone to protect them, and it works out. Then we transition over to Min with the Amerlin seat, and apparently Logain is destined for greatness even though he's been gentled, and that is concerning because how is this possible? Usually gentled men basically are unlikely to live very long. And Logain's only alive still because they keep him from taking his life as a form of penance, or I would say torture, but I think it is a sort of penance, and also because I'm pretty sure Logain comes back into prominence in the story later. So that's pretty good there. I enjoyed that aspect of the story as well. Then we return to Perrin and everyone that goes through the ways. They manage to go halfway through basically, and they're on their way to the Mantheran Gate. But before that happens, they get attacked by Trollocs and a Fade. They manage to take out the Fade, or beat it enough that it doesn't try to go after them again. When the Mashin Shin, the Black Wind, decides to roll over, and they have to run for their lives, and they make it out of the ways in the nick of time. And Loyal is actually smart enough to remove both of the 3-foil keys in order to lock the door on the outside and not let anyone from the inside open it. And so this actually will be a pretty helpful thing in general, because that way Trollocs won't be able to get to Mantheran anymore, or to the 2 rivers anymore. But also, it means that they managed to close that gate down without having to destroy it. So that's pretty meaningful for Loyal specifically, right? So yeah. As this is also happening, Elaine and Nynaeve have managed to go to the docks, and they're talking to some sea folk. And I had a little bit of confusion here because I thought the sea folk and the Shanchan were the same thing. And I think that's just because both of them are boat people to an extent, but I don't really understand the difference too well. And the way that these people are described, the sea folk, I think of like Maori. Something about them kind of feels like it reminds me of things that I've seen in, some kind of pop culture things. And specifically, they remind me of like things from Moana. Not really sure if that's like legit or if that's just me, connecting things that are not there. But they do give me that vibe. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. I like that. I guess they might actually be based on generally Polynesian people, but I think Maoris are part of Polynesia, or they kind of identify with, or they are identified with that group of people. I'm not really sure, but they kind of give me that vibe. So it's pretty cool. I like it. I think it's the tattoos and the fact that they're kind of like ocean people. I don't know. But I like it. It's kind of interesting because we get a lot of culture building for these sea folk, and we get to see that they also have their own legend for the Dragon Reborn, and they know that they care about him in some way. And we also learned that a lot of them actually have channelers that are the wind riders, or the wind seekers, the wind finders, the people that set the course for the sea folk ships. And that's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. Because this means that there are different ways to channel beyond the Aes Sedai. And it also means that there's people that can channel that are good, that are not forced into servitude, like the Damians, I don't know what to call them, but like the Shanshan people, that can channel and can fight because they're not forced to follow the oath. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty meaningful there. And also we get to see that Elaine and Joria, I think is her name, or Jorin, managed to develop some sort of sisterhood, some sort of connection between the two of them, that leads to Elaine learning about weaving her power in a different way from what she knows before. And so that's pretty cool. I think that's going to be pretty beneficial to them later on. And then we're back to Rand, who's doing a lot of big political maneuvers here in order to remove all of the people that are against him from Tyr, push them into a battle that they probably will die at, force people to change their allegiances, and also remove himself from Tyr so that he can go somewhere, which we later learn is Rudian, to basically do this pilgrimage in order to gain a stronghold with the Aiel, so that he can have an army of people, a group of people that he can trust implicitly, thanks to their very weird cultural tendencies that he's banking on, right? And so they manage to get there to Rudian, and he does this weird stance in order to ask for permission to go into this city in the clouds, this place where they do their trials in order to be clan chief, in order to be wise one. And as he's doing that and being allowed to go, because he does look like an Aiel, Matt also decides that he wants to go in there too. And so after a bit of a spat there between all of the people that are there, he gets permission as well. And so they both walk in, and moments later, Avienda is forced to do so as well, because she is to be a wise one. That's why she has this kinship with Egwene and Elaine. And then Moraine also has to go in there for her own situation. And so 4 people go into the city, and we only follow Matt and Rand while they're there. And so what happens in this part of the story is that Rand is walking. He finds this fountain, and so he makes the water come from the fountain, and him and Matt have a little bit of fun there playing with the water after a very difficult day in the sun. And then they continue. And then eventually Rand finds this ter'angreal that forces you to see visions of your past or something like that. It's basically like the anima thing from Assassin's Creed. He hooks into it, or he connects with it, and then there's a bunch of flashbacks. And instead of seeing Altair and Ezio, he sees a bunch of different Aiel men that are all supposedly connected to him in some way. And basically, he sees very important moments of the history of Aiel, and it's really, really interesting stuff here, because he learns that The Aiel were originally servants of the Aes Sedai in some way. They're well respected, but they were still servants. They failed the Aes Sedai in some way. They were given things to carry with them, and then there was a split. And some of them became the Aiel that we know today, that we know in the books, the strong kind of like Assassin's Creed, kind of like desert ginger people that we understand to the Aiel to be. And the others happen to be the Tuathan, or the Tuathan, the Tinkers, the people of the song. With the Way of the Leaf and stuff. And that's really, really interesting. I really enjoyed this aspect of the story here that was portrayed to us. I was really interested in this revelation. And then we also get to see things like how the Maidens of the Spear happen, and how their culture evolves. And we get to see these very clear moments. Now, I don't think culture evolves that way, but having these clear, specific moments that we can infer lead to these cultural changes later on was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. And so I really liked what was happening here a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was really, really great. While this is happening, Matt finds another red doorway, goes into it, and he finds the other group of Fae people, because there's two of them, the Elfin and the Aielfin. And I don't know which one's which. One group is like snakes, and the others are like creepy Slendermen. That are all like they're not black like the Enderman. They're more like Slender Man, and he interacts with them, but he thinks that he has to ask 3 questions. What he actually has to do is ask demands, but he's supposed to haggle with them first. And because he doesn't, they exact their own price after they accept his demands, right? And so basically he dies, but he comes back to life, and after he has done that, the holes in his memory are filled. He is given a weapon or something, and something else. I can't remember exactly the wording for everything, but basically, he becomes, who he's meant to be, the character that we know from later on in the books, or at least that I know exists later on in the books, but I don't know exactly the details for. But he basically does this like Odin thing. He's stabbed through his body. He's hung from a tree. And he kind of does a cross of his kind of thing, and he gains something from this. The same way that Odin gained knowledge of runes and magic and stuff like that from sacrificing himself on this tree for 9 days and 9 nights, I think. I don't know. I don't remember how it works, but he does the Odin thing, and he overcomes this trial, and so now he has been rewarded with the things that he demanded. And so really good stuff there as well. I really enjoy that. And then we're back to Perrin. And they managed to make it out of the Mash and Shin, or out of the ways after Mash and Shin attack them. And what happens now is that he uses the wolf dream that leads into the sleeping world, or whatever it's called, the Ter Alanriad, I think is what it's called. That sleeping place, the dreaming world. And he tries to find wolves in the area so they can help him, but there's none. And so he travels and travels and travels across this world, far and far, far away. And eventually he finds Hopper. And he finds Hopper right as he's about to track someone called the Slayer. And then, right before he enters this area, this dark area that apparently the Fae people live in, he is confronted by a woman. And the woman realizes he can speak to wolves, and she gives him some advice and some talks, and then she goes. And he tells Hopper about it, and Hopper doesn't believe him because Hopper didn't really interact with her. He didn't see her. And so this woman has to have some power, some sort of Aes Sedai connection, some power from the true source in some way, because otherwise I don't see how she could evade Hopper's natural abilities. But basically, a lot of things happen. Perrin and Hopper have a conversation, and they go their separate ways. Hopper is like, the last hunt is near. One day we will meet again, and go and have a good hunt, young bull. And so he leaves the dreaming world. He leaves the wolf dream, and now he has information. And so it's time to continue onward. And so they eventually reach Emond's Field, and he goes to talk to Egwene's parents. And it's a pretty interesting moment that happens here. They take him in. They, give food and water to all the Aiel men and to fail. And the Aiel give gifts to Mistress Elvira, and she's really surprised. But she takes it in stride. She makes it work. Eventually, Bran tells Perrin the reality of the situation. His family is dead. They've been dead for a while. It wasn't the White Cloaks. I think it was Trollocs that killed them. But it's a tough situation, and it's been a while. They've been buried under a apple tree, and it works out. The thing is that Perrin initially tries to be a strong kind of character. He tries to hide his pain, but Fael decides to comfort him in a rare moment of her doing something like that. And so he weeps and he weeps for a long time. And eventually he comes back to himself. He realizes that no one's there because they gave him space. But he kind of gets conviction. He gains force in some way, some sort of willpower. And they continue on. And so they go to the forest, and there they find a pair of Aes Sedai. And that's where this part of the story ends. And so, yeah, some of the interesting parts that happen in this part of the story, specifically with Perrin, is that Egwene's mother has an interesting reaction to Loyal, to the Oiger. But I didn't really understand it. She is surprised when Loyal and Perrin talk in a kind of friendly way. And I'm not sure if she's surprised at the fact that Perrin is being amicable, or the fact that he knows an Oiger and he's like on first name basis, or the fact that the Oiger Loyal showed care for Perrin's family. So I'm pretty curious about what that was. I don't think it'll ever be answered. It's not something important, but I found it to be pretty enjoyable. And actually, I have read past this moment, and I have been mostly enjoying the Perrin stuff of the story after this moment here. Throughout this part of the reading, I was actually enjoying the Matt and Rand part of the story a lot. I was really enjoying that stuff. But I think in the next section of the story, I will probably be enjoying Perrin's part of the story a lot more. So, yeah, overall, really good stuff here. I really enjoyed my time with this part of the story, and I can't wait to read more of it. So I will leave you guys here, and I'll do another review discussion video here soon. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys later.